Yesterday we saw the Gemara, the Mishnah's concern of somebody who's going to put a eggshell or some other vessel of oil near his candle or above his candle, which is going to drip in. And the concern is that by doing so, what's going to end up happening is he's going to have oil that's going to drip in. But since it's in a separate vessel, he may end up taking some of the oil from there to use for a salad or something. And by doing so, that will diminish the amount of oil in the candle, and that's a form of extinguishing the fire, which is prohibited on Shabbos. Now, the Gemara told a story that Rabbi Yehuda said he was once in the attic of Beis Nitzah, and Rabbi Tafranan and the elders did not complain or to correct someone who had put such an oil vessel above the candle. And the Gemara explained that they were diligent, and therefore there was no need to warn them. But in general, that is a problem and is a concern. So the Gemara tells us, Avin Tzipira, Goras of Salaba Elisa, the Shisha, Le'ela, Mi Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Eliezer. So it used to be that the attics were made up, like all houses, were made up of dirt ground. The floor was actually made up of ground of dirt, and the particular attic that they were in actually had a tile floor. So in this particular case, in front of Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar, Abin Tzipora dragged his bench on a tile floor. Now, if you remember, we've seen this case of someone pulling a chair, a bench, a table. Actually, mita v'safsal are the cases the Gemara gives, which is a bed and a chair on the ground on Shabbos. By doing so, they may end up making a furrow, a ditch, an indentation into the ground, which essentially is digging and is a prohibition on Shabbos. One of the 39 malachos of choresh, of plowing. And now, even if this person does not intend to do so, Rabbi Yehuda says it's prohibited, because he does not hold it in the narrow prohibition of meleches machsheves, of the intentional work. And so, since you're pulling the table, it's going to be prohibited. And in this case, it was actually a tile floor. It was marble. And nevertheless, Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar wanted to stop Abin Tzipora from pulling the table. Amarle, he said to him, Ishtuki lach, if I'm going to be silent to you, Kiddishtiku lechavrai la Rabbi Yehuda, just as the elders, the friends, were silent to Rabbi Yehuda in the case of the oil, nafik minei churva. People are going to assume that the halacha is that you're allowed to pull this, and you're not allowed to pull a table if there's a dirt ground, there's a dirt floor. And naflik minei churba, there's a mistake going to come out of it, or actually a ruin is going to come forth. It's gzeira alisa the shishat, alisa the alma, because I need to make a fence here and make a prohibition on a flat surface floor like a tile, marble, because most people don't have that, and most people won't recognize that that's the reason why you were allowed to pull this table here. And therefore, he told him, stop it, don't do it. Reish Kanishta the Batzra, similarly, the head of the, so basically the Shamish, the head of the shul in Batzra, Garas Afsal Elam Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabba, he pulled a chair, a bench, in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah the elder. even though the word le'ela, above, it means above, like al. Rashi explains that the word le'ela usually means someone standing at a distance in front of and facing and working with someone. That's le'ela. So Amalei, come on. Whose opinion is this that you're pulling a bench on the ground? Rabbi Shimon. That's the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, as we said, who said we're not concerned about an unintentional act on Shabbos. And if you are pulling this table or this bench and inadvertently, without intent, it's making a furrow, that's fine. That's okay. That's the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Maybe Rabbi Shimon only said this with large tables, where you can't carry it, you can't pick it up. Okay, so then it makes sense that you would pull it. But by small ones where you can avoid making the ditch, the furrow, you can actually lift it up. Don't drag it, even though that it's less likely to make that ditch because it's not as heavy. But nevertheless, you have an opportunity to avoid that charisha. So even though it's unintentional, but it's somewhat intentional in the fact that you could avoid it and you're not. However, this distinction it contradicts Ula. The Amma Ula Machlokas Bekatanim, because Ula said quite the contrary, that the Machlokas was only in small vessels. Aval Begedolim Divrei Kol Muter. But in large vessels, even Rabbi Yehuda said, since you can't avoid it, you're allowed to pull it. So essentially, we have a concept here of Melechas Machsheves. That a Melacha is prohibited on Shabbos when you intentionally do the act. We will see later the concept of psik resha, where it's unintentional in as much as that's not your intent. However, it's intentional in as much as it's unavoidable. Unavoidable if you're going to do A. The scenario which the phrase comes from, psik resha, is referring to someone who says, I'm going to remove the head of the chicken, but I don't intend for it to die. That's not a possibility. Even though that they used to use the head of chicken for something specific, they used to use it as covers for for jugs or whatever. That's great, but you can't assume that, I need a jug cover, so I'm going to remove the head of this chicken as a jug cover, and then the chicken won't die, because that's not my intent. I just need the head for something. You can't assume it won't die, because you know it absolutely... Sorry? Someone just spoke?
No, but I wanted to. So Meleches Machsheves is essentially if hello?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah, if you want the result. Is that correct, or is that?
No. Meleches Machsheves.
In other words, if you want a charitz and you drag a bench, well, there you go. You got your charitz. That's Meleches Machsheves.
Correct. There's two things. There's we'll see soon. What you're talking about is where you want the result. You need a constructive result. That's one aspect of Melechas Machsheves, and that's called Melacha Tzricha Legufa.
So what's the difference between Melacha Tzricha Legufa and Melechas Machsheves in general? Because they seem really close.
They are close, but they're different. One is that's the intent of what I'm doing. My intent over here is I'm pulling a chair. I don't intend for a ditch to be made, for a furrow to be made. I'm not trying to plow. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to set up a picnic in the backyard. So I'm pulling a table. That's what I'm doing. There's no intent for the action happening. However, it's such a heavy table and the ground is so soft that I can't avoid it. That's a psik resha. So that's really the discussion we're having right now. The discussion we'll have later is where I'm making a hole in the ground, but I don't need the dirt. What I need is the hole, because I need to dump garbage, for instance. So I don't need the dirt. So that's, I don't need soft dirt. I'm actually not going to know what to do with the dirt. I have a problem now that I'm going to have dirt and a pile of dirt on the side, and I don't want that. What I want is the absence of what's there. I need a hole in the ground so that I can put garbage in, for instance. That's a malacha she'eino tzricha legufa. That's a work that I'm doing, but I don't actually need the soft ground that I'm turning. That's a separate part of meleches machshavas. So we have meleches machshavas, intentional act. A, it has to be that the action that's happening is what I'm intending. Two, the action is the result is what I'm looking for, a constructive result. The absence of something is not a constructive result, because we're constructing. You're creating new. That's the definition of malacha. Those are the two things that Rabbi Yehuda is strict about and says no, that's still considered your action, and Rabbi Shimon says is not your action. Here we're talking about the first one, meleches machshavas, in the intentional act, and he's pulling a table or pulling a chair, and the question is Rabbi Yehuda strict only when you could avoid it because you can lift it up and you didn't, or only where it's heavy and therefore more likely to make a furrow? So the Gemara says that there's a machlokas over here between Ula and Rabbi Yirmiyah, whether Rabbi Yehuda was strict in the smaller vessel or the larger vessel. Masav Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon HaMegarim Adam Mita Kisa V'Safsel. Rabbi Shimon says that a person is allowed to pull a bed, a chair, a bench, as long as he doesn't intend. His intention is not to make the ditch. Ketani Gedolim, Ketani Ketanim. We have a brisa that mentions both the larger vessels, larger chairs and table, right? It says a bed and a bench. Ketani Ketanim, it also says a chair. So that seems a contradiction to both of them, who said that the machlokas was only in large vessels or only in small vessels. And they each one explain the brisa in their own way. Ula explains it according to his opinion. Mita dumi the kisa. When it said a bed, it's referring to a bed that's as light and as small as a chair. Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabba, and the elder Rabbi Yirmiyah, he explains it according to his opinion. Kisei dumi the mita. When it says a chair, we're talking about a large, heavy armchair, big chair. Like a bed, and that the brisa is uniform. Masav Rabba asked a question. We find another place where the Torah indicates that you need an intentional act, by shatnez. The Torah says by wearing a garment of shatnez that it needs to be that it's a beged, that it is acting as a garment. So there we say the halacha is, and the Mishnah says in Kilayim, so mochrei ksus, those that are the tradesmen of garments, mochrin kedarkan, they can sell it in the marketplace as they normally would, and they didn't have mannequins back then, so people would put show off their wares by actually wearing it in the market. As long as you're not trying on specifically a garment that's cool in the summer, because of the sun, and in the winter because of the rain. That's new. But people who are being diligent and strict, mafshilan would only hang it on a stick over their shoulder, and they wouldn't put it on themselves in order to try it on, in order to show off their wares. Over there, clearly, they have the opportunity to show it off some other way, and nevertheless, what they're doing is they're doing it in a manner that they're actually wearing it. So it's like a small vessel. And Shari Rabbi Shimon, and yet Rabbi Shimon says, as long as you're not intending, it's going to be fine. Even l'chatchila to do so. So Tues to the Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah. So that's a contradiction to Rabbi Yirmiyah, the elder, who said that Rabbi Yehuda only said so if you had no other opportunity, and Rabbi Shimon is only permitting if there's no other opportunity. To Yufta, indeed, that's a contradiction. What we see is that Rabbi Shimon says, even if you have an opportunity to do it differently, such as a small chair, where you could pick it up, it's easy for you to lift it. Nevertheless, it's not a problem, unless it's absolutely intentional, on account of you can't avoid it. This is a heavy table heavy enough that if you were to drag it, and the ground is soft enough that if you were to drag it, it's going to make that for you. So that's the end of this halacha in regards to meleches machshavas, intentional action. We will see more about it when we talk about psik reisha, this concept of where it's unavoidable and nevertheless you do it. Now we're going to get into the concept of melacha tzricha legufa. Melacha tzricha legufa means that you're doing the action that's prohibited, but you don't need a constructive end result. It's you're removing something, so it's actually the absence that is what is your desire. For instance, our Mishnah is going to, for instance, what we talked about before, where you're digging a hole and you don't actually need the dirt. What you need is a hole in the ground to get rid of something. So normally, when you plow, you need the dirt. You just want it to be softer so that you can. It's tilled enough that you can put the seed in and that it'll grow well. Well, that's where you actually need the dirt. But you're making a hole in the ground where you need the absence of the dirt. You may not even know what to do with the dirt because you have a pile. But whether or not that's the case, the point is you don't need that. What you need is a hole in the ground. In our case, where we're talking about lighting a fire and extinguishing fire, the Mishnah is going to tell us a machlokes of whether or not when I extinguish a fire, but I have no need for a wick, a singed wick. I have no need for the coals. I have no need for what remains after I extinguish the fire. That's all trash. So then I have no use for what I've now created, the coals. Rather, what I need is to get rid of the fire for a secondary reason. That's my main reason. But my primary reason is I need it to be dark for whatever reason. That is a melacha she'eina tzricha legufa. It would not be a Torah prohibition, it would be a rabbinic prohibition. So hamachaves haner, somebody extinguishes a candle because he's afraid of the non-Jews, as Rashi explains, and we saw this earlier, that at certain holidays it was you were only allowed to have candles lit in the churches. You were not allowed to have it in your home. And if somebody was lighting Shabbos candles and then they would come around and check, they would have to extinguish their flames. Otherwise, they could be arrested or fined or whatever it was. So if you're extinguishing the fire, not because you want the fire out, but because they would come in and check, or they listened, or there were a band of robbers coming through town, and if they see light in your home, they're likely to break in. So you want to extinguish the fire in order to protect yourself. Or somebody's having a bad spirit. So Rashi, in the text that's on the side, Rashi says Marish Chora is a depression or some psychotic episode, and the light in the room is a disturbance. And if the lights is extinguished, it'll actually help them in their recovery. Or somebody that's ill, in order to help them sleep. Putter. In all these cases, even though it's prohibited to do, that's going to be putter. It's going to be exempt from chatas. However, if your intent is to save the candle cup, or to save the oil, or to save the wick, What you want is say, you know what, that was enough of the candle. I'm going to extinguish it so that I can save the oil for salad tomorrow. Or I don't want it. I see the wick is leaning and it's blackening the cup that the oil that the wick is in. So I want to save that. So I'm going to extinguish it. Or you know what, I don't want the wick to burn down all to the bottom. I want to be able to use it for the next candle. So I'm going to extinguish it. In all these cases, chayiv, you're going to be transgress biblically and have to bring a chatas. However, Rabbi Yossi Poter Bekulah, Rabbi Yossi says you're exempt in all of these besides for chutz min hapasila, unless you want the wick, because that wick is now better than it was before because it's pre-singed and it now is going to light better.
Chatas would only be b'shogeg.
Right, we're talking about the shogeg.
But it sounds like in the context here,
all the Mishnayos are talking about unintentional, where he didn't realize that it was prohibited on Shabbos, or didn't realize that it was Shabbos. One of the two, and therefore it's a chatas. So Rabbi Yossi says that the reason you're going to be potter when you by all of them. The reason why you're going to be chayiv if you extinguish with the intent for the wick, because you're actually making a coal. We wouldn't call that a coal. A coal would be something larger, but the idea is that the end is already pre-burnt and is going to make for a better wick. And now we are on Lamed Amid Aleph at the top. Mehiktani Seifa Chayiv. Since the end of the Mishnah says he's chayiv, meaning he's chayiv to bring a chatas for this intentional act, that tells us that we're talking about a biblical transgression. Shema Minor of Yehudi tells us this is the opinion of Yehuda, who says that even though it's unintentional in the Melachat Tzricha Legufa, you don't actually need something. You need something not to be there. It's not a constructive act. Nevertheless, it's going to be chayiv. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. So Reisha b'mayaskina. So what are we talking about? It said we're talking about someone who's ill. Are we talking about someone who has a danger to life in their illness that potentially could develop into something that's a danger to life? Mutter miboyle. Not only is it exempt, but you're supposed to do it. It's permissible to do. And if it's talking about someone who's ill, but there's no real danger to life, it's just they're not feeling well. So then it's still a biblical prohibition. It says no, that really we're talking about someone who's ill to the degree that there's a potential that this can develop into a life danger. And you're right. When it says that it's exempt, what it means is you're allowed to extinguish the candle. You're allowed to, for someone you can do any malacha for them because it's a chalash b'sakana for the life saving. So why didn't it say why did it say that it's exempt of the chatas, indicating that it's still prohibited? Why didn't it say mutter? I did the boy Mr. Say for chayiv, since in the end we wanted to say in the second cases, in the other cases, we wanted to say that Rabbi Yossi, that the Chachamim say you're chayiv, that you are obligated in the chatas. Tani nami reisha pater. Therefore, it's the symmetrical or the opposite would be exempt, obligated and exempt, chayiv and pater. But really, it is muter. But whatever Shaya in the Brisa, he says that it more clearly says, don't do it, but if you did, you're going to be exempt. Pater aval asar, but it's still prohibited. That must be the opinion of Rabbi Shimon in a case where it's someone who's ill, but there's no danger. And therefore, it really is still prohibited. But as Rabbi Shimon says, since since you don't really need the coal, what you're trying to do is the absence of the light. That nevertheless is not going to be a Torah prohibition. You can't bring a chatas for that, but it is still prohibited. The Gemara tells us a story which was very interesting. In the times, they used to have various times a year something called Igra de Kala, times of where the masses would take off from work and they would come for learning. And the majority of people were not very learned, but nevertheless, everybody came, men, women, children, they all came to the academy, and people would throw out questions. And the teacher, would respond to the question, but often would not get to the response to the question immediately, sort of like ask the rabbi, is this permitted? Yes, it's permitted. Is this prohibited? It's prohibited. No, they didn't respond that way, but rather any question that came to them, they first started with a nice drash about it. And so the Gemara records one of them, which is somewhat relevant to our question, and it goes into the way that drash developed was spoken out in the response to the question. So Shol she'ela zu le'ela Rabbi Tanchan de Navi. Rabbi Tanchan of Navi was the teacher that day, and the question was asked in front of him. Are you allowed to extinguish a candle in front of someone who is ill on Shabbos? Pasach ba'amar. So he began with this drash. An Shlomo Malkasa, you Shlomo, king of Yisrael. An chachmasacha va'an suchlasanusach. Where is your wisdom and where is your understanding? It's not enough that your words contradict your father David. But your words contradict themselves. David Avicha, Amar, your father said, that those that are dead cannot praise Hashem. Va'at Amris, and you say, in Koheles you write that you give praise to those that are already dead more than those that are alive. And not only that, you contradict yourself, because it is better to be a live dog than a dead lion. So when it says Lokasha, that's not a contradiction. This that David says that the deceased cannot praise Hashem. This is what it means. Always endeavor to do as much Torah, learn as much Torah, and do as many mitzvahs while you're alive. Because once a person passes on, they have no opportunities to do Torah and mitzvahs. And therefore, this person is no longer a form of praise to Hashem. And this is what Rabbi Yochanan says. What does it mean when it says in the verse? This pasuk is in Tehillim as well. Freedom in death. As soon as a person is dead, he's no longer able to learn Torah. He's free from that, and he's completely empty or free of mitzvahs. So that's David HaMelech's intent. And what does Shlomo mean when he says, I give praise to those that already died? Because when the Jews sinned in the desert, Moshe Rabbeinu stood up and said in front of Hashem, Kama tefilos v'tachanunim, many prayers, but he was not responded to. When Moshe said, remember Avram, Yitzchak, and Yisrael, your servants, immediately he was responded to. Is that not appropriate that Shlomo said, look, those three have long been passed on, and yet Moshe's prayers, Moshe himself is davening, not responded to. He mentions the names of the three that are passed already, and he responded to. Davar Acher, another interpretation of what this means, those that are already passed. Minhag Shalom, in the common way of dukes and kings in that time.
The way of the world.
The way of the world of their time, of dukes and kings and so on. Melech Basav Adam or Sar Basav Adam, a king or a leader, a human, Gazik Zera, if it makes a decree, Suffolk Mekaiminasa, Suffolk Mekaiminasa. There's a doubt of whether people will keep it or not. But even if people are abiding by that law, that's only while he's alive. As soon as he's dead, there's a new ruler, and whatever the new ruler makes the rules, those are the rules. However, Moshe, Moshe enacted many things and many offenses. Like Rashi points out, like the Gemara says that in Megillah, that Moshe Rabbeinu enacted that 30 days before a Chag, that on the day of the Chag, you say a drash about the Chag. And they remain forever and ever. So wouldn't Shlomo say, wow, look at that. I give praise to those that are deceased, such as Moshe, that even though that they are no longer here, nevertheless, their enactments continue till today. Davar acher, or another interpretation. What does that mean? Rabbi Yehuda Marav said, what is the meaning of this pasuk? Do a favor with me, do some good with me, and that my enemies will be shamed of their hatred to me. So this is what David is saying to Hashem. Ribbonu Shalom, Master of the universe, Mecholi al Oselva. Forgive me for that sin, for the sin of Bathsheba. Amar Mocholach. Indeed, you are forgiven. Show me a sign. No, I'm not going to show you a sign in your lifetime because you can still sin. So in your lifetime, you have to continue in tshuva. But when your son Shlomo is going to be on the throne, ani modia, I will show it. And the Gemara says, Kishebana Shlomo is Beis HaMikdash. When Shlomo completed the building of Beis HaMikdash, there was a celebration that went through Yom Kippur and Sukkot. In the end, he attempted to bring the Aron in through the front doors of the Beis HaMikdash. Great celebration. The Jews are watching. Everybody's so excited. But the gates would not open. The front doors of Beis HaMikdash remained shut and they could not be opened. Shlomo said 24 songs. In the tefillah there of Shlomo, in the prayer of Shlomo, there are 24 phrases of song, and nothing answered. Pasach va'amar. So then he said, open up gates, uplift the gates of the world, and let the King of Honor come. So the doors thought he's talking about himself. Ratu Basrei and the Mivle, so they wanted to swallow him up. Amru, and the gate said to Shlomo, Mihu Zemel HaKavod. Who are you referring to? Who is the King of Honor? Amar, he said to them, I'm going to talk about myself. I'm talking about Hashem. Hashem is Zos Gibor. Hashem, the mighty. Chazav Amar. So he said again, please, open up. Who is that Melech HaKavod? Hashem. Hashem, the master of all powers, is the king of Kavod Selah. Still, they wouldn't open. But then he said, the pasuk, Hashem Elokim al tashev panei mishechecha, don't turn back your face from your anointed. Zachra, remember l'chaste David avdecha. Remember the kindness of David, who began this project of building Beis HaMikdash. Miyad nana, immediately the gates opened. At that moment, the face of all of the enemies of David who wanted to perpetuate that David remained a sinner and never did tshuva, their faces turned like the underside of a pot, blackened and ashen. And then all of Yisrael and all the people that were gathered there knew that that David was forgiven. So isn't it appropriate that Shlomo gave praise to those that are already deceased? Because you see that David, after he passed, was publicly, it was made known that he was forgiven. And this is why it says, Bayom Hashmini, on the 8th day after the celebration of the inaugural celebration of the Beis Hamikdash, Shalach Hasa'am, Shlomo sent the people home, Vayivarchos HaMelech, and they blessed the king. Vayelchu la'aholeim, they went home to their tents, Smechim and Tovalev, happy and with a good heart. Al kol hatov asher asa Hashem leDavid avdo Yisrael, for all the goodness that Hashem had done to David, his servant, and to Yisrael. So it's odd that it mentions David there, right? It should say Shlomo, but it's David because it was in response to David's Shlomo mentioning David that the gates opened. The Gemara now says a drash, and the Maharal explains that the purpose, the main point of this drash is that the purpose of the Beis Hamikdash is a form of connection, a wedding, as it were, between Am Yisrael and Hashem. The ability to live a physical life in Kedusha. That's what the representation of Beis Hamikdash is, and that's what the structure, the idea is that we can live our physical, what may seem animal, mundane life in a total dedication to Kedusha, connection to Hashem. So therefore, the drash here is, Vayechu la'aleim, they went back to their tents, Shematzah Neshasayim b'tahara, that all the women at the time were tahor, no one was in a state of nida. Smechim, and they were joyous. Shenanim miziv hashchina, v'tov elev, shenis'aver neshasayim shel kol echad ve'echad ve'yolda zachar, and they all became pregnant that day and had male children. And Maharal explains the idea is that the purpose of our relationship with Hashem, the spiritual Kedusha relationship with Hashem, is in order that we can be constructive in the world and continue building in a positive way. So that's the metaphor of becoming pregnant. And we talked many times about the concept of masculinity and femininity, that the feminine takes that which is given and develops it into life, and masculinity is the one that the power to go forward to give that initial spark. And so this is the idea over here, that the Kedusha was such that they came home and they had a new initiative to build in Kedusha. So Al Kol Atov Asher Asa Hashem LeDavid Avdo, for all the goodness that was done to David, his servant, that they publicly saw that Hashem had forgiven David for that sin. Ul Yisrael Amma, and what was for the goodness done to Yisrael. The Achilu Avin the Yom Kippurim. In the celebration, they also realized that the fact that the Aron was made it in and that the Shekhinah came down to the Beis Hamikdash, that the fact that they had celebrated through Yom Kippur and didn't fast that year was forgiven as well. And the Ka'amar Shlomo, and what about the contradiction of Shlomo's words himself, where he says, Ki l'kelev chai hu tov min ari ames, that a dead lion is not as good as a live dog. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, what does it mean when it says, Hodi'eni Hashem kitzi, midas yomai mahi? David HaMelech said to Hashem, tell me what my life occurrences are and the days of my life when up until when I live. And so I'll know, and this way I'll know what my end is. Tell me what my life occurrences are. No, this is something that I don't want people to know. It is a gzera from in front of me, because you can't live if you sort of know the end of the story. You have to create that end of the story with your choices and actions. And what is the measure of my days? No, we don't tell a person how long they live. Ve'edam achad alani, well, at least which day I'll pass. Amalei b'Shabbos Thomas. He says, all right, you'll pass on Shabbos. So David said, Amas be'acha b'Shabbos. Why can't you let me live until Sunday? Amalei kvar agia malcha Shlomo bencha. No, it's your son's. That'll be the day that Shlomo becomes king, and it already comes his time. You can't pass on that day. One kingdom cannot move into another person's kingdom even one day. Almost Erev Shabbos says, okay, so I'll give away a day. This way I don't pass on Shabbos. Let me pass the day before Shabbos. No, I'd rather you king one day than 1,000 of Shlomo. Your Torah and that you study and the song you sing and the way you interact in your days on the throne are better for me more than the 1,000 karbanos that Shlomo is going to bring daily on the Mizbeach. We're now Lamed Amud Beis. So the Gemara says, so David now knew a hint that he's going to pass on Shabbos. So Kol Yom the Shabbos have a Yosef Egarsa. Every Shabbos he would study Torah all day. Kuli Yom, Ahu Yom the Boyin Lemenach Nafshi. But the day that he was supposed to pass away, Kam Malach Hamavos Kamei. The Malach Hamavos stood in front of him, but he couldn't find a moment that he wasn't studying. And the Malach Hamavos cannot take someone's soul while they're studying Torah. They have a pasuk Puma Megirsa because his mouth would not stop from learning. Amar my avidly. So he said, what can I do to him? There was a garden behind the house. The Malch went up on a tree, and he started shaking the tree. So David went out to see what it was. But while he was walking, he was still studying or speaking Torah. He was walking on the steps, and he skipped a step. From beneath him, ishtik. So in that tumult of skipping a step, he was silent, and then he was able to take his soul. So now David passed away at Shabbos. Shlomo didn't know what to do. His father is laying outside in the garden and deceased. Does he bring him in? It's muksa. So Shalach Shlomo L'Bei Midrasha Abba Meis Umutul B'Chama. One problem I have is that my father is deceased and laying in the sun, and two, and besides, the dogs in my father's house have not been fed, and I need to feed them. So the question itself indicates, a lion that's deceased and dogs that are alive, that the lions are not as great as the live dogs. He's sending both these questions simultaneously. So Shalchalei, the Chachamim responded first to the dog question. Take care of the dogs, feed them, and you're allowed to use an avela, a carcass of a dead animal, to feed the dogs. Va'avicha, and your father, hanachal of kikar itinak v'taltalei. You put either a child or a bread on your father and use him as a means to transport the bread or the child, and then it's not a muksa and you're allowed to use it. Well, so for the dead carcass that you're feeding the animals, you don't need some sort of trick to means to transport it. But the David Melech Israel is lying there outside, and you need some sort of vehicle in order to move him. Is it not appropriate what Shlomo said, that a live dog is greater than a dead lion? Obviously, the story as it happened did not happen this way. The Marsha and the Maral explained that most of the laws of Muksa didn't apply yet at that time in any case. So this concept, but it wasn't there. This is a part of the drash, and there's a depth in understanding Shlomo's perspective of his father and the passing of his father. But nevertheless, we don't have time to get into that. But the concept, the drash is there. And then he says, but now, regarding the question that you actually asked, can you extinguish a candle in front of someone who is ill? that was in front of you, ner kari ner, nishmasa shaladim kari ner. A candle is called a candle, and the neshama is called a candle. However, the neshama is the candle that Hashem made, and the candle, the ner, is the candle that you made. Mutiv techava ner shel abasav adam. It is better that you extinguish your own candle, mipnei ner shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, rather than extinguishing the soul of a person, which is the candle that Hashem had made. So yes, extinguish that candle and don't allow this person to pass. If there's someone that's in danger or potential life danger, then you have to break Shabbos to save their life. Tomorrow we'll continue with more of Shlomo Melech's contradictory statements in the drasha here. For now, Yashar Koach for joining.
Yashar Koach.